Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to the Tulane recap, where, obviously K-State walked away the victor, 34-27, but it's not one of those games where you're walking away feeling particularly happy. It's one of those games where you're just sort of happy you survived. And also you're not happy, and also you're happy that you're just not Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was a really weird Saturday for college football. So I really honestly I'm no longer upset about the end result in a vacuum, because I've gained a great deal of perspective on how much worse it could be. And we came off pretty good, I think, getting a road win against a good team, even if it was not pretty.
Yeah. But before we go more in depth to what we're talking about, we do want to thank the sponsors of the show, and that is Greg, Arthur, and Grandma.
Thank you,
Grandma. And if you want to have your name read out and support the show at the beginning of every single episode, be sure to check out the official supporters link in our podcast and Twitter bio. But we'll start with the game generally. Like I said, we did end up winning 34-27 down in New Orleans. And I feel like we sort of have to start by addressing the quote-unquote controversy that came from the last 3 or 4 plays of the game. One being an offensive pass interference penalty, and the other a no call in the DPI, which I know a few people, mostly Tulane fans and a few outside of observers, have taken a degree of amorous with, I believe. So we'll start with the not amorous, avarice, but we'll start with the OPI call, which I don't think anyone is disputing that it was a pick play. I don't think anyone is disputing that fact. And just, if you haven't seen the play, it was a stacked alignment, and the guy in the front of the stack was supposedly running a slant, but he just ran straight ahead and directly into a defender that would have otherwise covered the flat. And it's a play that happens a lot, and it is unfortunate that it got called in that moment, but it is offensive pass interference by the letter of the law. Would I have been upset? Don't misunderstand. I'd be going ballistic if that happened to K-State. I understand the anger, but it is a flag.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason it was called is because I seem to remember there being a pretty similar moment earlier in the game where that was not called, and Kleiman got in the ears of the official about it. And so, I mean, if they hadn't done it earlier, there's a chance it does not get called there. And in fact, it probably doesn't, because refs have been, especially in the last few years, extremely lax with calling offensive pass interference on pick plays. I mean, even commentators have gotten to the point where they don't even say missed offensive pass interference. They just call it straight up. They'll call it a pick play or a rub route, and they pretty much just come up with a bunch of fancy terms for saying that, the offense, the wide receiver is just pushing a defender out of the way, and we're all just going to be all right with it, even though it's still against the rules. For what it's worth, I didn't see that play until later, because the last 7 minutes of this game, I was driving to a wedding, so I got Wyatt vision for the last little bit, which was really great and an exciting way to end the game, getting to hear Wyatt's call on the interception. But I saw the controversy first. I think Jeff Schwartz and Stuart Mandel tweeting about it. And I was like, wow, it must be really bad if these national guys are talking about it. And I saw it and I was like, oh, that's it. And that was
that's
really,
all?
I was expecting something a little bit more outrage worthy. Then we ended up getting there. Now I get why Tulane fans are upset about it. Like I said, I'd probably be upset in the same situation, but It felt like a pretty routine offensive pass interference call to me, particularly when they've run some similar concepts in the game, and the opposing coach has kind of gotten in the ears of the official about it. So I'm completely unbothered by it. I know some people are going to say it's a like fake win or Mickey Mouse win or whatever.
I don't care.
I feel nothing really. I don't feel bad for them at all.
Yeah, and then the other call on the last possession was, it wasn't as controversial. It was a no call DPI and Jacob Parrish against Alex Bauman, which was their tight end. It was just good coverage, and Jacob Parrish is doing what he can against a taller tight end and an underthrown ball, which was, I almost guarantee you, either made to be a PI ball or a Moss. So I don't, like, again, it's just good coverage where a player is playing physical. I don't see the DPI there.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think, whether consciously or subconsciously, I think officials sometimes will give a little bit of leeway to a corner getting matched up on especially undersized corner, getting matched up on a giant tight end in a situation like that, where they're maybe going to let him get away with being a little more physical. But I don't even think it got to that level. I think it was just like tight coverage. Like, I really think that was it. And if the ball had been thrown a little better, like, he probably mosses Jacob Parrish anyways. So, skill issue, I guess, for inside. Again, there was a lot of controversy being thrown around. Then I was like kind of checking Twitter, like when I had chances, and I was finally able to catch the clips that were controversial. I was just like, oh, I've been waiting all evening to look at these, and it was nothing. So that was a little disappointing, but
Yeah, so outside of those two controversies, we sort of opened the episode, but this is one of those games where you're just happy that you survived and you really want to move on, because there was a time in this game where Connor and I were genuinely dead inside, just staring at the television, not enjoying ourselves.
I imagine we were not alone in those moments either.
Yeah, and like I said, survive in advance to steal from March Madness, but it is. We'll talk a little bit more about this in game day grades, but you'll take the non-con victory and just run is how I take it, because we weren't even the biggest upset alert this week. That'd be Penn State Bowling Green, who won by the exact same score as us. And then, of course, Michigan got mollywopped. Arkansas and Oklahoma State were in a dogfight, and then Oklahoma State ended up pulling away at home. There was a lot in the way, and of course, Notre Dame falling to NIU. There was a lot in the way of, Saturday scaries for college football.
There's probably, you could make an argument for even a few others, like Iowa lost Iowa State at home in a last-second field goal. You can stretch a little bit and say, ranked Georgia Tech loses by a field goal on the road to a Syracuse team that's breaking in a new coach. There's some. Auburn lost at home to Cal as well, which kind of completely flew under the radar, I feel like.
Arizona was in a dogfight with Northern Arizona.
Yeah. Well, it was Wisconsin in a game that's just a little too close with South Dakota, 27-13. That was a one-score game until halfway through the fourth quarter. So, I mean, like I said at the beginning of the episode, it was a really weird Saturday in college football. And, when you look at how all of those results, at the end of the day, we can say we went on the road to one of the best G5 teams with a coach that not only I think is a really good coach in John Summerall, but is also a coach who him and his staff are extremely familiar with K-State, given that they came to Manhattan and schemed against us last year. So they already a bit of a step ahead there from a lot of other non-conference opponents you might see. So I was also not happy in the moment, but I'm trying to take a step back and say this really could have been so much worse than it was. And I sometimes with road wins, you just got to take them and figure out a way to be okay with it. Now, with that being said, it's not to discount particular grievances because I think there are many grievances that are completely valid. I'm just talking about big picture, like, hey, let's be happy we won, but we can still criticize.
Yeah. And sort of starting with that criticism is going to go into game day grades, where we go through every single position group, including coordinators, giving them a grade from A plus to F. A plus meaning they near single handedly won us the game. F meaning they near single handedly lost us the game. We didn't lose this week, despite the efforts of one group that was really, really, really trying to get the F. And so we'll just start off with the man under center, and that is Avery Johnson, the quarterback position. Again, it's one of those things where in the moment it feels a hell of a lot worse than it actually ended up being. Because Avery Johnson ended up going 15 for 23, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, and added another 40 on the ground. That's a solid stat line. That's not bad. But what people will remember is him missing 2 pretty much walk-in touchdowns. One to Sterling Lockett and who was the other one too? Oh,
I cannot remember. I
okay,
truly can't.
maybe it was just the one to Sterling, but he missed other throws as well and wasn't hitting guys
He
as they
could
were
have.
coming.
I guess there's an argument that he could have hit Keegan and Stride a little better on that throw downfield. That might have gotten some extra yards, maybe a touchdown if he sheds a tackle, but like
Yeah,
that's not as
players.
clear cut as the Sterling one. The Sterling, my heart goes out to the Lockett family in this trying time for for what they had to endure.
Yeah. So, Avery, I don't think if you talk to him, he would call this his best game. But there are also a few things that, given other grades, has contributed to what I ended up giving him. I ended up giving him a C plus, and that's all the way up from a C minus that I was about to give him, because I just looked at the stat sheet and was like, wait, really? there are a few of those moments that we have, one of which is on the defense, which raised one of the position groups up an entire letter grade and a half. But this is one of those games where, yeah, you can be disappointed that he didn't have as good a game as he did, but he still did enough to win the game and was never. Yes, he missed some throws, but he was never an active detriment to the team. So I ended up giving Avery a C plus.
Gave him a really similar grade. I gave him a C. I don't know if there's much I can say to differentiate from your grading other than just it just felt like a C to me. But this was another game where he had some ups and downs. The miss on the throw to Sterling really hurt my soul. Because he was open, and that's a throw that, again, if he's not getting rushed off the right edge, right in his face when he makes that throw, he probably doesn't rush it as much, and at the very least gets a completion out of it, I think. But if hands and butts, and we'll get to the pressure off of the right edge as well. But he still had some really great moments, like that touchdown pass to Will Swanson. I think is an underappreciated great play from him. There's one replay angle in particular that showed what a fantastic throw it was, and also what a great adjustment it was from Will Swanson because Avery put it in the only place that he could without the ball being affected by a defender, while still being within Will Swanson's catch radius. And Swanson still had to make a tough adjustment, though. So that was a great play by those two. And then he did pretty decent running the ball. He was a little better at it. I'd like the designed runs to maybe be timed a little bit better. But definitely could have been a lot worse. And the throw to DJ. was, according to Kleiman, an improv from Avery and DJ Giddens, which has good and bad interpretations of it.
You and I both about died because we thought it was an overthrow.
Yes, I did. We both thought that was an overthrow when it happened. For context, we were watching this together, so which may not be a normal occurrence, but most of the game we were watching together. So no, we both thought it was an overthrow, but instead, DJ Giddens is now our leading receiver through 2 games. So, which worse things have happened. It's a little sad, but not that sad because DJ is just. Oh no, he's not leading in yards. He's leading in catches. Yards is still Jace, but he has 1 more reception than him. Regardless,
point still stands.
Yeah, Avery could have been better. Could have been a lot worse, but I still think that this was a better performance, even though he had his issues and down moments.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it. But a really, really bright spot is the running back room, DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards. DJ collected his, 6th consecutive 100-yard rushing day. Dylan Edwards goes 4 for 54. We'll talk about the lack of touches in a different – well, no, we can talk about it now. Only giving Dylan Edwards a grand total of 5 touches in this game really, really, really makes me sad. And that's not a diss towards DJ Giddens because, yes, I do think that DJ Giddens is the more complete running back, but you can't deny that every time Dylan Edwards touches the field, it's like a nuclear bomb goes off because he's just that explosive. So I ended up giving them an A+. They are, without exaggeration, they are the reason we won this game. We do not win this game without DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards, even though they had 1 touchdown between them. Well, two touchdowns between them, 1 receiving for DJ and then 1 rushing for Dylan. And we don't get those with 2 average Big 12 running backs. That doesn't happen. Not in this game.
I also gave him an A+ for similar reasons. I think they're the reason that we won. And I like what you said. I wasn't going to talk about this originally, but I think it was a really good point, and I think I can expand on it a little bit about like an average Big 12 running back. We probably don't do as well in this game, or we probably lose if it's just an average Big 12 running back. Because DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards, they're above average and even great Big 12 running backs. Which, to be fair, running back play of the conference is, I think, a step above most other conferences. For some reason, we're just overflowing with great running backs right now in the Big 12. But DJ and Dylan are still a step above that. Most running backs aren't going to have the instincts to improvise like DJ Giddens did on that long touchdown reception. And a lot of running backs aren't going to have the speed necessary that Dylan Edwards did to score on his run. And I also would like to take a moment to recognize a fallen soldier who had his touchdown taken away, and Joe Jackson, which I almost completely forgot about until you mentioned 2 touchdowns between the running backs. And I was like, didn't Joe get one? And I was like, oh, no, he didn't. He didn't get one. We're going to get there. We're going to get there, I promise. But no, and Joe Jackson, he looked great on his play as well. And that was his only snap. And it didn't even count because of a penalty. But the running backs looked really great. TJ was great. Dylan only getting 5 touches in this game and 7 in the last game is unconscionable. When I was originally typing that exact phrase in a group chat, it almost auto-corrected to unconstitutional. And I think
it should be.
I think you could find an interpretation about some, I don't know, there's probably some clause somewhere in the Constitution that says you have to give Dylan Edwards at least 10 touches a game or something like that, particularly when he's averaging 10.8 yards per carry right now granted, it's only 9 carries, but maybe we should test the law of averages here and see if that stays high or not. Because I think he's had 1 carry go for 1 yard all year, and it was a touchdown run on the 1 yard line. So we should give Dylan Edwards the ball a bit more. That's what I'm getting at here. A+ for the running backs. They were awesome. I love talking about the running backs on this team. They're just so good.
Yeah. Wide receivers, this is another one where you sort of have to grade on a curve because you can see angles where they are getting open, and Sterling should have had a touchdown. Keegan Johnson probably should have had another couple of receptions. Jace Brown probably should have had another couple as well. Trace Bybee does get his 2 receptions, which is kind of what I'm expecting a game. I am expecting like every 3rd or 4th game him to get a really impressive contested catch because he's 6'4". So it's difficult because the receivers altogether totaled 6 catches. That was it for the receivers. But they could have gotten more, and they should have gotten more. So it's very similar to the B I gave them last week. I ended up giving them a B- because they were getting open. They just weren't getting the ball.
Yeah, I gave him a C+. Kind of similar reasons. Keegan had a pretty nice day, stats-wise. 3 catches, 51 yards. He had a 33-yard catch over the top. It was a solid but not great throw from Avery. It could have been better. And then Jace only gets 1 catch, but Trey had 2. One of them was like a short screen that didn't do anything. The other one was a pretty tough catch where he really fought for a first down right at the line, which I really liked. I thought that was encouraging. Dante Cephas got a target on what was unfortunately not a great ball. He did make a cool one-handed catch. It just didn't matter because like both of his feet were completely out of bounds and it like wasn't close to being in bounds. But he did at least do that. In Sterling again, he managed to get open on one of his only 2 routes run of the day, and it absolutely should have been a touchdown catch, an easy touchdown for him. Jaden Jackson, I think he got targeted once maybe, but didn't get any catches. So yeah, a C+, just not a lot of production from them, unfortunately, which I guess in the time of this podcast isn't unusual. I mean, we've really never known a hyper-productive receiver room in our time doing this show, so it's not particularly surprising.
No, it's really not. Though I will say credit where credit is due. There has been noted improvement in the ability to get open under Matthew Middleton.
Absolutely. Completely agree. I completely agree. This is a good receiver room. We have a good quarterback. I think it's just going to take a little time for them to put it together in games. But they're getting there. I have more hope that this unit will be good than I have had with prior units. So,
which again, not saying much, but
yes.
it is encouraging. And next up is tight ends, fullbacks, who combined had a total of 4 catches. Will Swanson leading the day with 2 for 18 yards and a touchdown. He had arguably the 2 most impactful catches of the game outside of the KJ and DJ in like receptions, where one was a really early first down and then one was the improv play by Avery. And they blocked fine. They were getting like, it's pretty much Will Swanson that carried them to a B because, again, small sample size, but they did well enough to earn that, B.
Yeah, I gave him a B+. I was really happy with Will Swanson. Braden Lofton continues to kind of be the surprise of the season so far by virtue of him actually producing. Will Ansiao did find his way onto the field a handful of times, or I think just once. Yeah, it was only just one. But regardless, that was a little bit surprising to me. But more credit to him for finding his way on the field. So we're playing like 4 tight ends at this point, I guess. Well, really 3, but we found a reason to put Will Ansiao in a meaningful snap which is encouraging. But B plus for the tight ends. They blocked fairly decently. Oakley, I think, didn't block great. It wasn't his best day. I think he had a drop as well, maybe. So I was just a little bit disappointing as a leader of the Oakley brigade. But I'm still happy though the other tight ends are showing up right now. But if Oakley can find a way to get it going, then I think that can maybe be the key to unlocking some of the pass game. It's a little bit more threat over the top from the tight ends, which I think Oakley can maybe bring.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add. Now we can talk about the offensive line, which there was exactly one person on the offensive line who I would say had a good day. Two that I said that I would say are fine. And then 1/2 miscellaneous, and then one that we're right back to wanting fired into the sun. Which, if you remember, for quite some time on this show, we were not necessarily the biggest fans of Carver Willis. Now, credit where credit's due. He put it together really well last year and had a really, really good game up against UT Martin. However, this was the most abysmal pass blocking games that I have seen from a K-State tackle, not only in the time doing the show, but since I've started watching K-State football. He was awful. And a lot of the offensive line was not leagues and leagues better. Kilty was good. Kilty is always going to be like a solid pass blocking presence. That's his game. Hecht was unnoticeable. Hecht so far is really, really impressing me. I really, really am happy that Sam Hecht is hopefully, knock on wood, breaking the undersized former walk-on center curse. Panzer was fine. Lane Gang was fine. But it really just came down to the fact that Carver dragged this group way, way down. And it's not just because he cost Joe Jackson a touchdown, though, yes, I am mad about that. It's just he was abysmal, and not like the rest of the room didn't justify getting anything more than a D-, which I really, really disliked watching the line play from this game. You'll say that, Avery was only under pressure on 22% of his snaps. Yeah, because he was dodging. Wait, you don't get credited for the pressure when the quarterback dodges. So, yeah, I gave them a D-. I was really, really, really disappointed with the line this game.
This is going to be one of the bigger disparities, I think, that we've ever had on the show, I think. I gave him a C+. And I think the big difference is that I am not giving us much of a group-wide handicap for how bad Carver was, because Carver was really bad in this game. And I say that I'm having really come around on Carver Willis after the non-conference last year, where he started really rough, but I mean, by season's end, he was really good. And even the first game this year, I thought he was really good too. But this week was just not up to par for the standards that have been set. But I was fairly happy with Sam Hecht. Panzer I thought was okay. Lane Gang I thought did well. Taylor Portier I thought was really good in this game too. I'm kind of getting back to his old self, I'm hoping. John Pastore played a decent amount. But no, yeah, it was a pretty rough day at the office for Carver. And then it doesn't help that his penalty was just absolutely brutal timing as well. But it also was an inexcusable penalty. I mean, I really
5 yards downfield.
Well, he was like 5 yards downfield. There was nobody in the area to block. He was the only guy down there. Like that was just a huge, 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 huge lapse by Carver that I just cannot get over. But the rest of the line, they blocked at least well enough for some pretty explosive run plays. And maybe some of it is Avery was masking. some of their mistakes in pass pro outside of Carver. But it was definitely not a banner day for the offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to put it. And you're right, that is the biggest disparity we've ever had on the show between our grades.
And
Now
normally we're kind of in lockstep. Normally,
yeah,
so
I was really, really sad with how the line played this game, which is really weird because I don't think Avery was sacked.
I don't think he's been sacked this year.
No, Avery was not. He was not sacked, but it's just, I just was disappointed with how much pressure they were giving up and how consistent it was. But anyway, now we can move on to the offensive coordinator in Connor Riley, who pleasantly surprised me this last week, and then this week was pretty much what I was expecting going into the season, which was not great. Don't get me wrong, there were a few shining moments. The run game scheming is always going to be fine with Connor Riley. Fine to really, really good, just depending on what day it is. But you're never going to have a bad running game with him as the run game coordinator. They started showing a few different personnel looks with wider splits. I thought that was interesting, but it took 2.5 quarters for K-State to get any sort of offensive identity. And, some of that is on Avery, missing a throw or two in the first half. A few throws in the first half. But that has to be the offensive coordinator has to be willing to get the quarterback into a rhythm. And also, it's really, really not good whenever I've been waiting to mention this on the episode all day, where we came out and empty. And I'm sure you remember this, Connor. I jokingly said, oh, they will never expect the QB power from the empty set. Joking. And then it happened. I don't even remember what I said afterwards. I think I said something to the effect of, I was joking. Why did you do it? But yeah, Riley gets a D+ from me. And if it was just based on the second half, he would honestly get a B. But that first half was god awful.
I completely agree. We're back in lockstep. Everything's back to normal. I gave him a D+ as well. The first half was just absolutely brutal. I mean, the second half we outscored them 24-7. The fourth quarter was a little bit rough, particularly the last 10 minutes, because we only ran 3 or 4 offensive plays, I think, which some of that's on the defense, but some of it is on not being able to take care of the football. No, it was rough. He didn't get a lower grade because, I mean, at the same time, there's been moments where he hasn't been up to the standard, and then there's been some moments where he's kind of gotten things figured out, and then somebody else will not execute. So it's a give and take, I guess. But his run game scheming has been pretty good. QB run has not been very well schemed, but outside of that, he's done a good job with really getting DJ and Dylan really efficient touches. Now, when we're talking about touches,
Dylan needs more, and yes. I am holding that against him.
Yes, and game one, I was like, that's weird. Why didn't we give him more touches? We'll probably see more next week, and we saw less this week, which that makes me raise my eyebrows a little bit, because Dylan Edwards needs to be touching the ball a lot more than 5 times a game. Unless we're really trying to hide something, which, maybe I'll eat crow. But I was pretty disappointed to not see Dylan touch the ball a little bit more. And then, definitely better second half, though. But I'm still not a super inspiring game play calling wise from Connor Riley, and also not a good day for his unit that he coaches either. So Pretty tough scene for Connor Riley.
Yeah. Now we can move on to the defensive side of the ball, starting with the defensive line. Hand up, this is the group that I looked at the stats and changed my grade by a letter and a half because Mensa was under pressure on 41% of his dropbacks. Not all of that was blitzing. Like the defensive line had a pretty decent pass rushing day, though the best of which belongs to Brendan Mott, at least on the defensive line. We'll talk about the best pass rushing linebacker. But yeah, it was at least pretty decent pressure. Damon Ilalio had a pretty decent day. I was sort of sad with how they were playing in the run game. And, some of that may come down to how they were lining up, which is a Clanderman issue. And some of it may be, getting over under aggressive on trying to, get into a running fit. But I went from giving them a D plus to giving them I gave from a D to a C plus because I looked at the stats, and although only one of them registered a sack on two of them registered a sack on the defensive line, Mott and Ilalio. They were getting consistent pressure with or without the blitz. Now, granted, we blitzed a lot. We'll talk about it, but a C plus for the defensive line.
I gave them a B. They definitely could have done better, particularly in defending the run, because normally we've been pretty decent with our run defense. This is an uncharacteristically bad day for the run defense, which is not all the defensive line's fault. But no, I agree. They did really well in getting pressure. Toby was quieter, but Brendan Mott had a good day. He got a sack. Damian Leo got one as well. And then a potentially unsung hero was on the strip sack from Austin Romaine. Travis Bates was actually the first pressure there, but Mensa was able to evade him, but Bates still slowed him down in that action, which gave Romaine time to catch him. So Bates gets a shout out there because he had a really great bull rush where he just beat the right tackle to the outside and just pushed him into Mensa pretty much. So it was a great pass rush that understandably does get overshadowed by Austin Romaine's even better pass rush because he did get the strip sack and Jack Faber's running very, very fast. So good day for the defensive line. Could have been better. I maybe could have been a little bit more harsh, but I guess maybe I was feeling a little bad about being mean to the offense. So I gave him a B.
Oh, there is another two.
There is another though.
Yet to be mean to. There are others, but linebackers aren't that room. Spoilers: Austin Romaine had the game of his life. Austin Romaine was destroying worlds in this game. 8 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs, and Austin Moore was no slouch either. 6 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs. Like the only linebacker that I think even PFF says has like a not great day was Asa Newsom for like the 3 snaps he was on the field. Dez was relatively quiet, but man, the 2 Austins did really, really well. So much so I gave them an A- just because they had that type of game. Austin Romaine himself had everyone else could have done nothing. Austin Romaine probably still would have carried this group to like a B+.
Yeah. I gave them a B+, so pretty similar grade. Austin Romaine, I think he graded out highest on PFF for the entire team. He got a 90.3 in this game, including a 92.8 pass rushing grade, which understandable because he was flying around. Because on top of the 2 sacks, he also had a quarterback hurry. He could have tackled a little better according to PFF, but sometimes PFF knows what they're talking about. Sometimes they don't. The only thing keeping the linebackers from getting an even better grade was there were a few times where it felt like we got a little gash in the run game, and I made that a collective responsibility with the defensive line and linebackers. So I didn't ding one group too much there. But Austin Moore is also good. He picked up a sack as well, and got a couple of tackles for loss. So I'm really good day for the linebackers and the pass rush specifically. So we were able to find something to still bring a pass rush, but just do it a little differently than we did in week one, which so good job there. Could have been better, but individually, though, Austin remains fantastic.
All right. It's time. It's the group that I was debating giving an F, even though we won the game, which I don't think I have ever done. I don't even think I've ever been particularly close to doing that. It is not an exaggeration to say that this defensive backroom was one of the biggest unmitigated disasters of the Kleiman era. And the lone bright spot was a single PBU by Jacob Parrish, to which he then did the no-fly zone celebration, where I hate to say it, buddy, they were flying a whole lot more than none. And then Jack Fabris recovering the fumble for a touchdown, which was really, really cool. And he was probably the only person on that play that was not at all tired, because he does practice and then has a 5-mile run for fun, because Jack Fabris is a psycho. But the coverage in this game was an unmitigated disaster that shouldn't have been an unmitigated disaster. Keenan Garber had perhaps the worst game of his defensive back life. He somehow turned in the performance that I thought he would have against the Big 12 championship in the TCU game, which was like his third game playing corner.
That was his first.
Oh, that was his first game playing corner.
That was the first time he ever stepped on the field as a cornerback. Was that game.
And yet he still knew the coverages better then than he did now. Jack Fabris is also the one that's responsible for that long touchdown, not Marquise Siegel, as was seen on Twitter. And I don't really feel like I have to say a whole lot more, because if you watched the game, you genuinely might be surprised that I am not foregoing the rules to fail them anyway. They get a D- on the verge of a refusal to grade.
I also gave them a D-. This was one of the easiest grades I've ever given out, because I don't know what it would take to get an F while we still win. Maybe like active sabotage, but and then this came close to that, but it wasn't intentional as far as I can tell, because we ended the game with a pick. So surely BJ would have just handed it to Keith Brown or something if it was actually sabotage. But it was a very bad day for the defensive backfield, and this was one of our biggest concerns coming into this game was would they be able to exploit us over the top using play action? And you're not going to, but that is exactly what they did, and is probably the only reason that this game was as close as it was because we have a very obvious weakness that we neglected to correct going into a game with very fast wide receivers and a recklessly confident redshirt freshman quarterback that is yet to face enough adversity in the passing game to make them slow down. So I will spend some time talking about some good things from the defensive back room. Jacob Parrish, I did not see this play, but according to voice of K-State football, Wyatt Thompson, Jacob Parrish made a really nice open field tackle sometime between the 7.5 minute mark and the end of the game.
Yeah, he did do that.
Which, credit to Jacob Parrish, he's actually done quite well in run defense this year, which that is a plus. Jordan Riley, I hear, tackled very well in this game as well. PFF agrees. Where is he at here? There he is. 85.7 tackle grade for Jordan Riley from this game. Pretty good. BJ Payne ended the game with an interception, which is very important for preventing the other team from catching the ball. Is we just do it ourselves. But outside of that, yeah, Fabris bit really hard on play action when, for once, Siegel and VJ didn't, and that left the middle of the field wide open, left some safety help nowhere to be found. Keenan Garber, not once but twice, thought we were in zone, and we were very much not running zone.
We were running blitz 0. How do you drop into a deep third when you're running cover 0?
Guess he just thought it was engage 8 or something. That was a bit of a misplay by Keenan. So yeah, it was a frustrating day for the defensive backs, particularly frustrating given that going into the season, we were told that the safeties and defensive backs were going to be one of the major strengths of this team. Now, we have seen before the safeties start out slow and finish really strong. So this isn't me writing them off for the season. It's me understanding trends in the climate era, and it's that we just tend to get beat over the top a lot, particularly early in the season. But communication has to improve, because that was most of the problems in the defensive back room. Was the communication was really bad. Keenan Garber doesn't play zone on accident twice and give up almost 100 yards in 2 plays. If we have good communication, Jack Fabris doesn't think that he's a linebacker for a play and give up like a 60-yard catch that gets blamed on Marquise Siegel again. If our communication is good, and we probably don't give up almost 400 passing yards to a redshirt freshman quarterback, if our communication's a little better. But no, instead, our defensive backfield got completely and utterly embarrassed in one of the better windows for college football broadcasts of the entire weekend. So not happy. I'm not very happy with that at all. But it could have been worse somehow. It really could have.
Yeah, we could have lost.
Yes, that is how it could have been worse. You identified the alternative. So D-. I would like to not see that again. Please bracket Ted McMillan next Friday.
Yeah, because that was basically Northern Arizona's entire game plan, and they somehow were in that game. But now we can move on to the defensive coordinator, who was the other one that was going to get an F if we lost this game. I understand the philosophy in, you send extra heat at the young quarterback to, make him second guess himself and walk into pressure when the times you don't bring pressure. Problem, you've been getting dusted in one-on-one coverage every time they run play action. You don't just keep spamming blitz 0. And yet, he did. And it would be a different situation if we got 5 sacks, which I really feel weird giving a defensive coordinator a D- in a game where there was 5 sacks. But at the same time, we should not have allowed nearly as many yards as we did. And a lot of that was Klanderman, in a very rare moment where Klanderman is being stubborn, where he just says, okay, no, we're going to keep our guys on islands and keep blitzing 0. Which, I get the philosophy behind it. It's not like I don't understand what he's trying to do. I just didn't really like what he was trying to do when it didn't work for the 15th time. So I gave him a D-.
I gave Klanderman a D pretty much exclusively because he pretty much just kept banging his head into a wall with blitz 0, and it did accidentally work a few times. And we still managed to win the game. That, and also we only gave up 7 points in the second half. So I think that there's some credit to be earned there. And the blitzes, when they got home, and they got home fairly often, were effective. It is just that, like you said, we can understand what he's trying to do, and there's logic to it, and it might even make sense in a vacuum. But we've now test ran the hypothesis, and it clearly has not gone the way we anticipated. So we should maybe alter our plans a little bit, which we declined the option to do that. And that was a big thumbs down, you might say, for the Kansas State Wildcat defense on the road to Tulane. That doesn't really worry me, though, because Kleinerman has really, for the most part, been a really good defensive coordinator at K-State. And when you're as aggressive as we are, like, you always know there's going to be games or moments
this is
within
just
games.
going to happen.
Yeah, we're just going to get beat. It just really hurts this time because it's Tulane again. It was a redshirt freshman quarterback, and it was mostly correctable problems or communication errors, and particularly concerning, I suppose, was the communication errors being in his position group that he coaches, because he is the safeties coach. So that is bothersome as well. So he gets a D. It could have been worse, but it could have been way better, and a lot of the problems on the defensive side of the ball were pretty avoidable, because we've seen most of this. We've seen most of the guys that were playing play better than they did on Saturday, which I think is maybe the most frustrating part of all. As pretty much that entire group, minus Jordan Riley, by the end of last year,
seen play better.
Yeah. So
it's just really annoying when that happens. And anyway, that's the end of game day grades. I have a distinct feeling you and I have the same offensive and defensive MVP. It's DJ Giddens and Austin Romaine.
You're not going to believe this, but yeah, we've got the same guys this week for. So far there's been a mostly very obvious MVPs for the season. There hasn't been a lot of discernment, I suppose, or a lot of opportunity for wiggle room.
Yeah, not a lot of room for negotiation in the MVPs, really. But now we can start talking about our general takeaways. And please never is my biggest takeaway is please do not let this series of unfortunate events carry out any further.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is, despite all of this has been one of the more negative reviews that we've done following a win, mainly because the way that we got there was not very fun or nice. But at the end of the day, we Tulane is I think a better team than, and we were trying to give them quite a bit of respect on this show. And say, this is still a good Tulane team. They have weapons. We still thought we'd win by more, but this was not a cakewalk. But I think this could end up being another situation where maybe not to the same degree as 2022, almost certainly not. But this could be yet another Tulane team that just sneaks its way into the top 25, and by the end of the year, they're all of a sudden 9-3, 10-2. Mensa's a second team all conference quarterback or something like that. So I don't know if it was Curry or Gene who scheduled this series with Tulane, but let's try and buy our way out of this last return game in 2026, because I don't really feel like doing this again. So I'd like it if we could just pay him a few $100,000 to go play I don't know, Emporia State or something. And so but you know, at the end of the day, the theme, I think that this was probably going to be the episode title, but it could have been worse.
Yeah.
I think that's the theme of this episode here.
Yeah, it could have been worse, but not by a whole lot.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're 2-0. We're ranked 14th. We're about to have a top 20 matchup on primetime Friday night in Bill Snyder Family Stadium. So that's like big things are happening.
Yeah. And I would say that as of right now, the two G5 favorites to make the playoff are going to be Tulane and Boise State, both of which just lost the top 20 in Boise State's top 7 ranked school in the country. So those two are going to be in a dogfight, although they're in completely different conferences, for the G5 spot in the college football playoff. But I think the other big takeaway here is, we already talked about getting Dylan Edwards the ball more. That goes without saying. But a lot of people were sort of panicking about Avery in the first half. And what I'll say is Avery took another step forward in his development. And it was present in the first half as well, because, yes, he had that one really, really bad miss. But he's still, the game is slowing down for him like week by week. And he's still showing progress, especially in navigating pressure. So I know it's easy to walk away somewhat disappointed with the fact that Avery didn't throw for more than 200 yards. But, I mean, he's still making progress, and he's still a really young quarterback. If he takes the same steps up that he took from UT Martin to Tulane, he's going to keep getting better and better, and he's going to be an exponentially better quarterback in the end of the season he's already the best quarterback in Kansas, which, yes, I will be continuing to take my victory laps on that basically until I die.
I wish I would have been able to watch that game, because I think maybe that single game alone might have washed out any bad taste from the K-State Tulane game. Because I forgot that game was even happening until I saw the final score, and so I got a nice laugh out of that. Got back to what I was doing, but wow, it's very interesting dynamics going on in the battle to be the least bad quarterback in the state of Kansas. But
yeah, do you have any other big takeaways before we sign off here?
Get Dylan more touches. That's it.
I agree. And we'll see you next episode when we cover the preview for the Arizona Wildcats, which, it's an interesting little matchup. Wildcats versus Wildcats, potential top 5 receiving pick versus defensive backfield that just gave up 350 yards to a redshirt freshman quarterback. We'll get there. But for now, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggieevilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdwards00.
I'm at Connor Balthazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store and the supporters link, both in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.